the tone mapper on, so I can have a little bit more light in the scene. And this is just a viewport filter. Sometimes these could be overwhelming, like a lot more light, so it could be like not a you have to kind of like think about your light for this. How are you going to present this at the end? So then when you paint it here, you create your environment as similar as the final render, so it helps you understand the mood. And we can talk about that in another time, so I can just show you how we can create an environment here that is like obviously similar to what you want to achieve at the end for the final render. But I sometimes use this with less gamma, just so I can have a little bit of light, more like filling the space with light. And of course, in the object list, I get all these objects from Maya as they were named. So you can see I can actually start, getting rid of the objects for now. So I can focus on the main one. And what you do first is, this is my object. I can deselect it. You can deselect it from here, deselect model. I need to immediately add a new material on this guy. So because everything here in MUDBOX has one material, only one, and this is the default one. So I'm going to go ahead and assign a MUDBOX material. Now notice that this material is sort of like the substance with a little bit different terminology. You see the diffuse, the specular, the gloss, incandescent. So you have all these like channels. Those are channels, and we're going to talk about all these. This material, I'm going to give it another color. And I'll name this like building or something. And now I know, you can see here that I can actually select the material. I know where it is. It's all about materials here since we're painting, so we know that this is what we have attached to this piece. And of course we can always change the settings here and all that. Now I'm gonna go ahead to the paint layers. So here's the sculpting layers, here's the paint layer, and I'm going to grab the paintbrush and click on this and decide that I'm going to paint using 2K. Now here we actually have to decide. There's no way back unless they change something and I don't know, but in Substance, remember, every brush stroke is recorded, so you don't really care how you start. You can start with 512 and then you can actually export to 4K, so that's a good thing. But since here 2K is going to be more than enough for us, I'm going to use a TIFF file. And now it's asking what kind of channel are you going to paint. We're going to do the color, the diffuse. So I get the first painting layer in a channel. So this is a channel, these are the layers. This is the layer mask, so I can create layer masks from here. And also I'm going to just explain a little bit about making your own color palettes, which is very important. In MUDBOX you can actually create your own. So I am going to find something I want to show you. There's this thing. Okay, so I have like I downloaded a paint chart. Since I use a lot of those colors in real life, in reality I just paint a lot of the objects I make, models I make, real physical models. I paint them with Tamiya spray cans and airbrush Tamiya colors, and they have a very good quality. And I really like their paint charts. This is one of the paint charts that they have, and I like using them. Now I can actually I downloaded that so I can use it as a painting palette inside MUDBOX. So if I go to MUDBOX, I can take some time to create my color palette. It's very important for you guys to have your textures all in a folder, and you have a little bit of a plan before you go. I mean, basically 99% of people, they just get in MUDBOX, they open a random folder with textures and they start using textures. But it's good to have a plan and kind of create like to pre-visualize what you're gonna do. What is this thing that I'm gonna do? What I want to make some sort of Middle Eastern strange looking building, futuristic maybe, and then I want to paint it with like sort of decorative patterns, maybe from the Middle Eastern patterns. So I have to download and find all these things and put them in a folder. Maybe go to Photoshop, make a couple of paintings or sketches just to have an idea. Also figure out what kind of mood or colors are they going to be. More ochre, is it going to be more blue, or is it going to be more yellow? So that and then what kind of color palette can I use? If you go to the paintbrush and you go to the color, then you open this color chooser. It's actually really good here because it gives you the opportunity to bring an image, and you can actually save your color palettes also. Here's a color palette that is a default one, which is sort of like a normal RGB kind of. But if I want to create my own, I'm going to say create a new one down here, and I'm going to name it. I have to save it though. If you only just create it here and you don't save it, it's not going to be saved. So I'm going to say Tamiya color chart 01 or something, and I'm going to go to MUDBOX, and I'm just going to create a new folder here with color palettes. So in here I'm going to save this, and I have to save it, of course. Save it. Now it's saved. It's a kind of a confusing thing. You have to like, and then I'm going to load an image, any image you want. I'm going to go to the desktop and get my screenshot. I think I have. Okay, so here you can see it's tiny in here. It looks like difficult to choose the colors, but it's actually not. You have to go to this cross here and go and pick a color like this one here, and then it will magnify, and you will get this color, and it will load up here. You can select it and drop it down here. So now you kind of, it's really an amazing thing. Like it's half the time painters have to create their colors, and they have to like really test them on paper. It's a lot of work, and for us, it's not only the colors, but we also have to prepare the textures. So our color palette is not only the color, but it's also the textures. So let's do another one. And so I can the yellow. So save that. So keep saving, so it will update. So now I have like, you know, I'm creating some of these. And you can always say, oh, I don't want this here, I want it there, I want this there. So I can create, so I can bring this one here, replace. So you can always kind of replace stuff. You can put all your grays up here, all your bright colors down there. So that's a custom palette. And I can keep going with this. So I'm going to save this again. And done. So now I can select from the palette. Okay, I like this color. And of course the brush. The brush comes with like you can actually go ahead and do like a little test on the corners and see, since we did a very careful UV mapping, I can see that I can paint and there's no stretching. Of course, if there is stretching, you have to go back and redo the UVs or clean them up. So this looks good. What I'm going to do is for this guy, for this layer, I'm going to flood the layer with one color. So I'm going to go down here and flood paint layer. So I have like, I painted that. So for only for painting, I mean, I'm gonna show you how I would use the paintbrush and some other tools here. So let's say I want to start using I can go ahead and create like a sort of a dirt map, let's say. I wouldn't use this color as a base, so that would be dirt base, and I'm going to use something more a darker tone. So I'm going to go up here and change that, and maybe use let me just load another color here. I can actually go in and just darken that, something like that. And I'm going to throw that in my palette so I have it. So I'm going to use this one and flood paint layer. Actually, even darker. I'm going to really... Okay, so I have this, and now I'm going to go and make a on this layer. I'll make a layer mask. So here's my mask, and what I want to do potentially here is to throw like if you the mask is like the Photoshop mask, so you actually use black or white, so you can go ahead and use like let's say I think white here. Let's see. Okay, so see what I did is like I went to the mask and I flooded that mask with black. So basically now I can go and start revealing that dirt paint, that darker tone. And I can go and use my paintbrush, but this time I can use a stamp like, let's see, maybe like maybe this one over here. I'm going to double click on that one and have a stamp image. I want to randomize it also. And now I have black. I need the opposite. I need white. A lot of times the opposite function in MUDBOX is holding the control key. So if you have a color, like you know, let's say I have the white color now, and I'm starting to like reveal the dirt. So now I'm just like kind of bringing that back. So with the B key, I just and see this happens a lot. So you have to be careful because it's using tangents. You have to kind of be careful where to like paint. So now I'm like kind of bringing this in, you know, like I'm just gonna try to get the corners like, and you can also, you know, use different kind of brushes here. And then I'm using the pen, so I have like that pressure sensitivity, which is great. And now this thing happens too. You get a lot of like reflection. You can go and say, okay, forget this light right now and go flat shade, so you can actually, you know, paint on the flat. Now if it's too bright, you can go to the tone mapper and turn it off for a second, or you can go to the tone mapper and turn the gamma down. So there's a lot of settings you can do here. Or the luminance. Yeah, maybe not, that's not a very good. It doesn't. The actual background doesn't really help. Also, the background color I should have like added a different one. So I'm gonna go back to that, and I'm just gonna use the smooth. Sometimes it's better to just get the flat line in here. So this is kind of like you have to always make sure that you you know, there's something here. I see something going on over here. If you notice it, there's like a straight line. So there's some problem with the UVs here. I mean, obviously we didn't work on the UVs. We did a very lazy job. So yeah, it actually, at some points we might have an issue. That one, we can find and see like what's happening in that area. We could actually go back to Maya and see if we can unstretch that area. So this is kind of like an initial kind of way to paint. Also, if I press Control now, I can see what happens. So I'm painting on the mask. So I'm painting, and you can see that I'm using like a white. Now if I'm painting, I can press Control and undo the opposite. So I can paint and then Control, maybe like lighter, like I'm not pressing the pen too much. So sometimes erasing is a very good way to do stuff. So so you can do a lot of those maps. So I started with that just to show you the layer mask and also how to create this kind of effect. So this is the layer mask. You can actually turn it off or on. So let's say I wanted to add a texture on this. Let's see why this happened here. 1 second. It seems that there, in some areas, there is a little bit of a problem with the UVs. So we're gonna experience that. But seriously, like this thing here, if you're not gonna see it, and it's only like a tiny area, and it's gonna be filled with dirt, and it's no reason to worry about it, especially if it's a prop. But if it's something like really visible, then you have to go and change it. So I'm gonna go ahead. Let me pause this video, and then the next one I'm going to bring textures in and start putting the textures in, and like and then on the next one I'm gonna send it to Substance. So I'm gonna save this scene. I'm gonna save the color palette. And yeah, I'm gonna pause the video.